How black majority treated German minority in Jamaica. That is what we want to explore today. Yes, there are German Jamaicans in Jamaica. I can think of three locations as we speak where they have their settlements. There is German town in Trelawny, Seaford Town in Westmoreland, and also in South St. Elizabeth, where they are mostly farmers. Before we even began to acknowledge them as Germans or even white, we called them brownings. There was no sense of race, and the black population never felt they had any reasons to attack or lynch them. Hello again, my people. Skywalker here again, broadening the topic and giving more light to the awakening. Today, we add more reasons to this truth. We add more reasons to this truth, and we are not going to be drawn away by subtle trickery to make us be fooled about the true nature of ourselves as if, oh, it's human nature. All humans are like this. Prejudice is a human thing and stuff like that. We are not like that. We are not like that, and we should not be compromising our truth. Only the black race has the heart and culture that it will take to be the beacons of light in the world. This I tell you without apology, and I can tell you this so boldly because the evidence is there, and the evidence only keep repeating. No other race has proven that they could rule with peace. Not even the whited out Indians in India, are especially them. In my estimation, they are probably worse than the white folks when it comes to prejudice. People, let me implore you to subscribe to this channel to stay abreast of the discussions here. Remember to hit the thumbs up button to help this channel with the algorithm. This channel is about the things that we often tend to ignore. However, some of these topics should be the priority of those that will think much of themselves. It must matter to do your due diligence. Jamaica has a diverse culture, and we adopted the ancient adage of Antiochus of thousands of years ago, after the death of Alexander the Evil One. His general Antiochus declared that out of many he would make the people he plundered one people. This was not for a good intention, but in the case of a country like Jamaica, the adage that was kind for evil is now used for good, or maybe for both good and evil, depending on the perspective you are observing from. There are so many things hidden that it takes too much to explain. We have to open our eyes as individuals. We can. The community's origins date back to 1830s. And when I say the communities, I mean the German communities in Jamaica date back to the 1830s when a labor shortage due to the abolition of slavery led to the migration of over 1,000 Germans to Jamaica. They settled primarily in areas like Seaford Town in Westmoreland and Germantown in Trelawny. While the German language has largely faded from use among them, some German words have been incorporated into the Jamaican vernacular, and the influence is also seen in place names and the physical features of some residents. Today, the descendants of these early settlers continue to be an integral part of Jamaica's multicultural society. There is no racial slur on them, and there is no lynching. These people simply live in peace with all else, and they do not have to fear the cops like the police is going to put something on them, and when it goes to court, everybody is going to see on camera that the police was trying to frame them, but they will still get charged. This is not America. It will not happen here. Neither does anyone look at them and say, hey, that's that's whatever byword they would choose to attack them with. Or the police won't put their knees on their necks and they will suffocate, saying, I can't breathe. In fact, there is no bywords cast upon them, and no one hates them for who they are or for just being white. Moreover, they are not wealthier than the black population, so there is no elite factor that sets them apart. In fact, I remember Germans that lived in South St. Elizabeth that always wanted assistance to move closer to the city to have a life. I remember those days, even in the 90s, when farming was not delivering any returns, and most of them in that area were farmers. And at that time, it was it was the black folks that visited them who were helping them to move out into the unknown and spread their wings like into cities like Montego Bay or its surrounding, or Kingston and its surrounding, its environments. Because sometimes they wanted to move out, but they don't even know much about what is outside. So now, like when they go out, they can spread their wings, go to school, find a job, and make some progress in life. Under that same structure, would the same thing happen if it were some black folks in Germany, in America, in Switzerland, or England? Let me ask the question again. Under that same structure, would the same thing happen if it were some black folks in Germany, in America, in Switzerland, or England? Absolutely not. Remember, all the black folks were genocided in the Holocaust, and then a white population was used to represent them and given reparation. You remember that? And even their identity was stolen as the Igbo people, which they say is the Jew or the Hebrew. You remember that? Also, let us look at the minority Indian population. These are Indians that came to Jamaica as indentured servants during the period following slavery. After the abolition of slavery in the 1830s, there was a significant labor shortage on the plantations in Jamaica. The Jamaican government, after unsuccessful attempts to recruit European labor through bounty immigration, turned to India and China to fill this gap. Yes, Chinese individuals did come to Jamaica as indentured servants. The first group of Chinese immigrants arrived in Jamaica on July 30, 1854. They were part of an established indentured workers program initiated after the abolition of slavery in 1838, as plantation owners sought cheap labor from various parts of the world to maintain their estates. By 1932, there were approximately 6,000 Chinese immigrants on the island. However, due to economic pressures during the Great Depression, the Jamaican government imposed restrictions on immigration from China in 1931, with further stringent restrictions in 1940. Most of the Chinese immigrants were initially brought in for farming, but many ventured into other businesses over time, significantly contributing to Jamaica's economy and cultural landscape. The Chinese thrived in business and they were allowed to. There were no lynching by the Jamaican black majority, and the cops did not stop them every time they were going by and point weapons at them. Like I remember being in the US and like for 1 week every single day, going to the same place and the cops would stop me and their guns would be pointing at me. Even in, And they would tell me to get out of the car and I'm in my uniform and going to the work. And they would tell me someone called and the gun would be pointed at me. And then the next day the same thing would happen again. As if they don't know me by now. From 1845 to 1921, over 36,000 East Indians, mainly of the Hindu faith, were brought to Jamaica as indentured laborers. The Indian laborers, who had already proved successful in other colonies like Mauritius, were seen as a suitable solution for the labor shortage in Jamaica. However, they were paid less than the ex-slaves and were initially placed at the bottom of the societal hierarchy. The Indian government took an active interest in the indentured labor system. Recruiting depots were set up in Calcutta and Madras, and the government monitored recruitment. The terms and conditions of indentureship, transport guidelines to Jamaica, and eventual repatriation to India. Most Indians who signed onto indentureship did so with the hope of returning to their homeland with greater wealth and improved social status. The first group of Indian indentured laborers landed at Old Harbor Bay in Jamaica in 1845, and the numbers increased significantly in the following years. The program was briefly halted by the Indian government to review its effectiveness, but resumed 11 years later in 1859 and continued until it was interrupted by World War II. Or wasn't World War II, it was World War One, right? It was interrupted by World War One. This migration had a lasting impact on the Caribbean landscape, not just economically, but also socially, culturally, and emotionally as these communities began to establish their lives in the Caribbean. In Jamaica, between 1845 and 1921, over 36,000 East Indians were brought to the island as indentured laborers. A significant number of these laborers remained in Jamaica, with close to two-thirds choosing not to return to India. This would have constituted a minority compared to the overall population of Jamaica, which was predominantly of African descent following the abolition of slavery. However, note this: the black majority did not hate or lynch the Indians like the light skinned Indians in India today would threaten to do and will threaten to do to the darker skinned Indians all day. They were allowed to live in peace and they were treated so equal that today there is hardly a Jamaican Indian in Jamaica unless he is a migrant come to live in Jamaica or just for business. The original populations of Indians simply merged into the black population, and today they hardly see themselves as anything different from black folks. They refer to themselves as coolies, which came from a word that means servant. This word would be a shame in India. If you say it to somebody in India, they would be insulted. But in Jamaica, it's an ordinary, everyday word. Where you go and see settlements of these Indian descendants, most of them identify as black Jamaicans, but only coolly. Compare this with Trinidad, another Caribbean island, where the Indians became 2 to 1 majority. So although the Indians came in, they outnumbered the Trinidadians. In Trinidad, between 1845 and 1917, a total of 143,939 Indians migrated under the system of Indian indenture. A large percentage of these immigrants, about 90%, chose to make Trinidad their permanent home. Given the smaller size of Trinidad compared to Jamaica and the larger number of Indian immigrants who stayed, the ratio of Indians to Trinidad the ratio of Indians to Trinidadians was higher on that island than in Jamaica. And I think the ratio could have been even as high as two-third majority. in Indians. Right away, the Indian majority that came into a black country in numbers that outnumbered the population immediately turned racist against the black people in Trinidad. Even today, they are still racist. They are very racist to the degree that peace is not always kept against both parties, and they will marginalize those of darker skin. Two scenarios here, right? One is when the black race is the majority in control, and the other is when the other race, any other race, is minority and not in control. Jamaica has peace with all the races, and they proudly say that out of many, one people. And the only reason why Jamaica has peace between the cultures or between the races is because the majority are the black Africans. Now, whoever think he knows so much to contradict this, let him come. And if you cannot contradict it, then you will have to agree to the fact that there is no other race on the face of this earth at, at this time that the Most High can hand can hand the responsibility for being the beacons of light, for peace in the world, or for a golden age. If it is given to any other race, then the determination and the desire will be to suppress and subject all other races and to destroy and eliminate other races so that they can have it all. And it will not happen. It will not happen. Truth has no regard for sentiments. You need to always remember that. This is not about prejudice. This is about the truth. And people can say whatever they like, but the truth remains what it is. And I am not here to push emotions or fantasies. I am just here to speak truth. And the truth is right before our eyes and it's unquestionable. So, me personally, I won't try to get around it. But, my people, look around you. Show me where a country with a white, Arab, Indian, Latino, Chinese, or any other race apart from the black race has ever or can ever achieve this human feat. Tell me when. The last time was thousands of years ago in the golden ages, but it was the black man who was the beacon of light. You see, the last time that that standard was raised in the world was when the black man was in charge before he was challenged by the white man who tore down the peace out of the earth. And now, in everything he does is just chaos and mayhem. And we all can see that. At the beginning of the Thousand Years' War, the white man declared that he wanted to change the history of how things were and make his white race, for once, be seen as the beacon of light for the world. He challenged the black man to rule. The Most High gave him a few thousand years, more than adequate time to prove his worth, to show his worth. He got that amount of time, but he has failed embarrassingly. And all these other races have failed with him. Truth has no regard for sentiments. If you see a single race outside of the black race that can preside over a world with non partial judgment and equal peace, then you tell me, well, the die has been cast, the deed was done, the judgment is made. God and history has recorded every judgment. Time will be no more. My people, I speak these words to you with no doubt in my mind. I do not care who will challenge it. I have no doubt. I do not doubt the Akasha. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Peace out.